Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. August 13th, 1977, 11:38 p.m. Vernon Presley, age 61. Sitting alone in his small house on the Graceland property, the phone rings. He picks it up expecting maybe a business call. Maybe Lisa Marie calling to say goodnight, but it's Elvis, and Vernon knows immediately something is wrong because Elvis never calls this late, never calls just to talk. They live on the same property, they see each other every day, so why is he calling Dad? Elvis, says his voice quiet, almost a whisper, I need to talk to you. Vernon sits up straighter, concern flooding through him. Son? What's wrong? Are you okay? There's a long pause on the other end. Vernon can hear Elvis breathing, can hear music playing softly in the background, probably the television Elvis watches all night. When he can't sleep, I don't know. Dad, Elvis finally says, I don't know if I'm okay. This is the story of the last phone call Elvis Presley made to his father 3 days before he died, a conversation that lasted 47 minutes, covering a lifetime of regrets, apologies, and love. And the 4 words Elvis spoke at the very end that Vernon Presley carried with him like a curse until his own death 17 years later. Because those 4 words revealed that Elvis knew. Elvis knew he was dying, and he was saying goodbye. To understand this phone call, you have to understand the relationship between Elvis and Vernon Presley. It was complicated like most father-son relationships, but magnified by fame, fortune, and tragedy. Vernon was born dirt poor in Mississippi, 1916. He worked as a sharecropper, a truck driver, whatever jobs he could find to feed his family. He wasn't educated, he wasn't sophisticated, he was simple, honest, hard-working. And when his son became the biggest star in the world, Vernon was completely out of his depth. He tried his best. He became Elvis's business manager, handling money contracts, deals, but he was in over his head. Colonel Parker, the real manager, manipulated. Both of them made millions, while Vernon signed papers he didn't fully understand. Elvis resented his father for this, resented that Vernon couldn't protect him from Parker's schemes, couldn't stand up to the Hollywood producers who forced Elvis into terrible movies, couldn't save him from the leeches and hangers-on who surrounded him. But Elvis also loved his father desperately, because Vernon was one of the few people who knew Elvis before he was Elvis, who remembered the scared kid singing in church, the teenager who just wanted to make his mama proud. Gladys, that was the wound that never healed Gladys Presley. Elvis's mother died in 1958 when Elvis was only 23 years old, and Elvis never recovered. Vernon remarried in 1960 to a woman named Dee Stanley, and Elvis hated her, saw it as a betrayal of his mother. The relationship between Elvis and Vernon became strained, polite, but distant. They lived on the same property, but in separate worlds, Elvis in the mansion, Vernon in the small house. Vernon watching his son self-destruct, unable to stop it, unable to reach him. By 1977, Elvis was a mess. Everyone knew it. The world knew it. He was overweight, addicted to prescription drugs. His performances were erratic, sometimes brilliant, sometimes barely coherent. His health was failing. Liver problems enlarged, colon, high blood pressure, glaucoma. He was 42 years old and looked 60. Vernon saw all of this, watched his son dying slowly, and was powerless. He tried talking to Elvis, tried getting him help, but Elvis would just smile that famous smile and say, I'm fine, Dad. Don't worry about me. But Vernon did worry every single day. He worried that he would get a phone call in the middle of the night, telling him Elvis was gone, and on August 13th, 1977, he got a different call, the call that would haunt him forever. Elvis had just returned from a tour. He was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. He had a recording session scheduled for the next day, but he told his staff to cancel it. I need rest, he said. I need to think he spent the day in his bedroom watching television, reading, trying to sleep, but unable to. His girlfriend Ginger Alden was there. But Elvis asked her to leave. I need to be alone for a while, he said at 11:30 p.m. Elvis picked up the phone in his bedroom and called his father's house. Vernon answered, "Hello, son, it's me," Elvis said. "Can we talk?" Vernon glanced at the clock. It was late. He was tired, but something in Elvis's voice made him alert, of course. "Son, what's on your mind?" And Elvis began to talk. He talked about his mother, about how much he missed her, about how he felt like he'd let her down. "She wanted me to be a good man, Dad," Elvis said. "Not a famous man, just a good man. And I don't know if I've been..." That he talked about Lisa Marie, his daughter who was only 9 years old. "I don't see her enough." Elvis said, "I'm always working, always on tour, and when I am home, I'm too tired too out of it. She's going to grow up, and I'm going to be a stranger to her, just like I was a stranger to my own mother." At the end, Vernon tried to interrupt, tried to reassure him. "Son, you're a great father, you're a great man." But Elvis kept going. He talked about his career, about the movies. He hated the songs he was forced to record, the endless tours that drained him. "I used to love music." "Dad," Elvis said, "it was the only thing that made sense to me. But now it's just a job, just another obligation. I can't even remember the last time I sang. Because I wanted to not, because someone was paying me to." He talked about Colonel Parker, about the contracts, the control, the manipulation. "I'm trapped." "Dad," Elvis said, "I've been trapped for 20 years, and I don't know how to get out." Vernon listened, his heart breaking, because he knew all of this, had been watching it happen for decades. But hearing his son say it out loud made it real, made it unbearable. Then Elvis said something that made Vernon's blood run cold. "I'm tired, Dad. So tired, I don't think I can do this much longer." Vernon sat up, panic rising. "What do you mean, son? What are you saying?" Elvis was quiet for a moment. "I just mean, I'm tired of pretending I'm happy, pretending I'm healthy, pretending everything is okay when it's not." "Are you thinking about hurting yourself?" Vernon asked, his voice shaking. "Elvis, no." Elvis laughed, but it was hollow. "No, Dad, I'm not going to hurt myself. I don't have to. Life is doing that just fine on its own." Vernon didn't know what to say. He wanted to drive over to the mansion, wanted to shake his son, wanted to get him help. But he also knew Elvis wouldn't accept it. Elvis had refused help before, had fired doctors who tried to cut off his pills, had isolated himself from anyone who challenged him. So Vernon just listened, and Elvis kept talking. He talked about regrets, about people he'd hurt, about friends he'd lost, about opportunities he'd wasted. "I had everything," Dad, Elvis said, "everything anyone could ever want, and money, fame, women, cars, houses, and I feel emptier now than I did when we were living in that 2-room shack in Tupelo. Back then, we didn't have anything, but we had each other. We had Mama, and that was enough." Vernon was crying now, silent tears running down his face. "Son, come over here, let's talk in person, let's figure this out together." But Elvis refused. "No, Dad. If I come over there, I won't say what I need to say. I need to do this on the phone. I need you to just listen." Vernon listened, and Elvis continued for 47 minutes. They talked about everything and nothing, about the past and the future, about love and regret, about faith and doubt. And then Elvis said something that made Vernon realize this wasn't just a late-night conversation. This was goodbye. Dad, Elvis said, his voice changing, becoming calmer, almost peaceful. "I want you to know something. I want you to know that I forgive you." Vernon was confused. "Forgive me for what? For not protecting me?" Elvis said, "For not standing up to Parker, for not being strong enough to save me from all of this." Vernon started to protest. "Son, that's not... I know you did your best." Elvis interrupted. "I know you loved me. I know you tried, and I forgive you because I understand now that some things are bigger than us, some things we can't control. I just need you to know that I forgive you, and I love you." Vernon was sobbing now. "I love you too, son. I love you so much." "I know," Elvis said. "I've always known." There was a long silence, both men just breathing, just being present with each other. Then Elvis spoke again. "I have to go. Dad, I have some things I need to take care of, okay?" Vernon didn't want to hang up, didn't want to let go. "Okay, son. But call me tomorrow, okay? We'll have breakfast, we'll talk more. I'd like that, Elvis said, and Vernon could hear the smile in his voice. I'd really like that. Then Elvis said the 4 words, the words that Vernon would repeat to himself every day for the next 17 years, the words that proved Elvis knew he was running out of time. Dad, Elvis said softly, I'll see you soon. Not, I'll see you tomorrow. Not, I'll see you next week. I'll see you soon. And then he hung up. Vernon sat there, holding the phone, listening to the dial tone for a full minute before he put it down. He knew in his bones that something was wrong. But he told himself he was overreacting, told himself Elvis was just having a bad night, told himself everything would be better in the morning. He didn't call Elvis back, didn't drive over to the mansion, didn't do anything. And that decision would torture him for the rest of his life. Because 3 days later, on August 16, 1977, at 2:30 p.m., Elvis Presley was found dead on his bathroom floor at Graceland. He was 42 years old, and the official cause of death was heart failure. But everyone knew the truth. The pills, the lifestyle, the years of abuse had finally caught up with him. And Vernon Presley had to bury his son, had to stand at the funeral and look at Elvis in that coffin, and remember the last thing his son said to him, I'll see you soon. For 17 years, Vernon carried that phone call with him like a stone around his neck. He never told anyone about it, never spoke publicly about what Elvis said that night. He would talk about other memories, other conversations, but never that last phone call because it was too painful, too personal, too raw. His second wife, Dee, said that Vernon would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, crying, saying, I should have gone to him. I should have saved him. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Maybe deep down, Vernon knew that. Maybe that's why he didn't go over that night, because Elvis had already made his choice. Elvis was exhausted, and he was ready to rest. In 1979, Vernon Presley died of heart failure at age 63. But before he died, while he was in the hospital, he asked for his nephew Billy Smith, Elvis's cousin and closest childhood friend. Billy Vernon said weakly, I need to tell you something about Elvis. Billy leaned in close. What is it? Uncle Vernon. Vernon's eyes filled with tears 3 days before Elvis died. He called me late at night. We talked for almost an hour, and at the end, he said something. I'll see you soon, Billy. That's what he said, I'll see you soon. Vernon gripped Billy's hand. He knew Billy. He knew he was dying, and he was telling me goodbye. And I didn't listen. I didn't go to him. I just let him hang up. And 3 days later, he was gone. Billy tried to comfort him. Uncle Vernon, you couldn't have known. No, Vernon said, I did know deep down. I knew. But I was scared of facing it, scared of admitting that I was losing my son, so I did nothing, and I have to live with that. I have to die with that. Billy Smith shared this story years later in interviews about Elvis. He said, Vernon died carrying the guilt of that phone call, believing that if he had just driven over to Graceland that night, if he had just been stronger, maybe Elvis would still be alive. But Billy didn't believe that. I don't think anyone could have saved Elvis at that point. Billy said Elvis was tired. He'd been tired for years, and when someone is that tired, that broken, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is just let them say goodbye. So what do those 4 words mean? I'll see you soon. On the surface, they seem innocent, casual, just a regular goodbye. But in context, knowing what we know now, they take on a different meaning, and they become a prophecy, a warning, a final message from a son to a father. I'll see you soon. Not in this life, but in the next. Not tomorrow, but someday. Not in the mansion, but in whatever comes after. Elvis was telling his father that he was ready to go. Ready to be reunited with his mother. Ready to stop fighting, ready to rest, and Vernon heard it, understood it, but couldn't accept it because no father wants to accept that their child is giving up. This story remained hidden for decades because Vernon was ashamed that he didn't save his son, ashamed that he let him go. Ashamed that the last conversation they had was on the phone instead of face-to-face. But maybe that's exactly how Elvis wanted it. Maybe Elvis knew that if he went to his father's house, looked him in the eye, he wouldn't have the courage to say goodbye. Maybe the phone was the only way he could be honest, the only way he could let go. And maybe Vernon's real mistake wasn't failing to save Elvis. Maybe his real mistake was spending the last 17 years of his life blaming himself instead of accepting that some people are just too broken to be fixed. And that's not anyone's fault. That's just tragedy. Elvis Presley died at 42 years old, leaving behind a legacy of music, a daughter who barely knew him, and a father who never recovered from losing him, and 4 words that echo across the decades. I'll see you soon, a promise, a goodbye, a heartbreak, captured in the simplest possible terms. And now you know the story. Now you know what Vernon Presley carried with him until his own death. Now you know why Elvis's last phone call was the most painful moment of his father's life. Not because of what Elvis said, but because of what Vernon didn't do. He didn't save him. He didn't try. He just listened and let go, when sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is accepting that love isn't always enough to keep them here. This has been another Untold story. If it touched your heart, subscribe for more hidden histories of rock and roll's greatest icons. And remember to call the people you love while you still can. Because you never know when a simple goodbye might be the last one you ever get. Thanks for watching.